But right now, my guest is Jennifer Hargrave. I want to talk about her. She's from Hargrave Family Law in Dallas. A survey finds about half of Americans sleep better when their partner's in a separate bed. And I have found this shocking in adulthood to find out how many of my friends, how many of my coworkers, how many of the people I go to church with, how many of these people that are married that sleep in separate beds. And my God, Jennifer, some of them sleep in separate rooms. I was just shocked how normal this is.
Exactly. I know. It sheds light. I don't think many people go around talking about the fact that they're sleeping in separate bedrooms, but I think it's a lot more normal than what we hear. So
the one excuse that I've heard personally from my friends and acquaintances is if husband has like a big CPAP machine or some other snoring device that makes noise and is really distracting, and there's some sort of distraction that's going to be there all night. Okay, I can understand why you would want to separate a little bit from him, maybe to another bed or another room. But that's not all of them.
No, I mean, look, I think opposites attract, right? So it's not unusual that you have a morning person married to a night owl, or that you have somebody who likes to go to sleep with the TV on versus somebody who likes it to be quiet, or, work schedules. I mean, there are people who, need to get up at 4 a.m. and don't want to wake up their partner. So, what I say is like sleeping in separate rooms can actually be an act of love and a good way to avoid an actual divorce. But I think the key is to make sure you're having good communication with your partner, that they understand that you're really doing this out of love and not doing this to avoid a marriage that's on the brink of falling apart.
Well, one thing that would concern me if my wife wanted to sleep in a separate bed or a separate room is it would cut into our marital time, the thing that married people do. Is there an effect on that?
Well, I mean, I think if you're going to be sleeping in separate rooms, you have to be really intentional about making sure that you make time for that intimate time, for sure. And also, that you make time for just pillow talk, for communicating about the day, right? And keeping in close contact. It can be really easy once you separate into separate rooms to lose that intimacy, and that can make it really difficult to sustain a marriage long term.
Yeah, well, see, I don't like the idea of having it be scheduled. I like the spontaneous, the unplanned, the incidental, occasions. And I just feel like my numbers would drop significantly if we did the separate bed thing.
Well, they might, but also, you know what? When you're married to somebody who's not getting enough sleep and they're cranky all the time, that's not exactly good for your intimate life either. So making sure that both of you are, getting your proper rest can make for better intimate moments.
Well, you do family law here in Dallas. How many of these people who end up splitting up started by sleeping in separate rooms, and then that was just the beginning of the fork in the road where they went their separate ways?
You're right. It is not unusual when people come into my office that they have actually been sleeping in separate rooms for a period of time. We find that that's usual, but typically they didn't start sleeping in separate rooms because they love their partner and don't want to disturb their sleep. They started sleeping in separate rooms because they were trying to avoid their partner, right? And so I think you really have to look at what is the intent. Is it to avoid the discussions and the conversations and the intimacy and the closeness with my partner, or is it an act of love? So I think the motivations are what really will determine whether or not you're going to end up in a divorce lawyer's office.
Yeah, one other thing that concerns me about this poll is I get kind of sad because I think how many of these are couples that are just staying together for the kids, and it's not.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so sad,
right.
Jennifer.
It is, and I'm a proponent of really good marriages. So if your marriage is bad and you need a divorce, then get a divorce, right? Don't suffer, and let your kids see you suffering. That's really not healthy. If there's conflict in the relationship, staying together for the kids can actually end up causing more damage, and we see that all the time. But it really is going to be dependent upon the parents and their ability to help their children navigate.
All right, Jennifer Hargrave, Hargrave Family Law in Dallas. Thanks for being on the James Show again.